We do stand for you, and we wanted to learn more about those restrictions to get you caught up to speed. This morning, we are joined by Mayor Quinton Lucas.
Mayor, good morning. Thanks so much for talking to us. Obviously, Thanksgiving, it's right around the corner. How are you going to enforce these guidelines, specifically 10 people only at private gatherings?
Well, the same way that we have before, which is a mix of regular enforcement of certain establishments, but for private gatherings, there is an email address that Kansas City will have. You can call 311, and you can report any number of things. But generally, we don't want to have to do too much enforcement, and instead, we want to spend more time just having people follow the rules. I've heard a lot of Kansas Cityans so far who said, we're going to rethink our Thanksgiving. We're not doing the same big family dinner. And I know that is a very tough decision, but I think it's a necessary one right now, particularly given the fact that so much of our spread is occurring from private gatherings, family gatherings, and nobody wants their mother, their father, their relative to get sick here at the end of the year.
Mayor Lucas, you just said it right there, and it's something you said during the last shutdown, if you want to call that as well, that the goal is to not get people in trouble. I know that there's one thing to get people in trouble for gathering in their house. We aren't going to do that. However, will enforcement be taken more seriously on the business side of things this time around? We know that you're working with law enforcement, but KCPD says right now there's no concrete plan in place.
So, short answer is yes. There will be more enforcement. This version of the order specifically cites the fact that the enforcement can be done by the police department, the fire department. We have a regulated industries department that works with bars and other liquor serving establishments, and of course, the Kansas City Health Department. The city of Kansas City was more aggressive than most in terms of enforcing the order, whether it be a U-Haul store or a bar in Westport or anything of that sort. We'll look to do so again. Importantly, this is not to be punitive. And I will say this, and I appreciate your stories about restaurants and bars and others, but I've heard from a lot of waiters, a lot of folks that work in the hospitality industry, photographers at weddings, who've said they want these protections because they're concerned about getting exposed and exposing their own families as well. We will do the important enforcement work, or else there'd be no reason for there to be a rule.
And Mayor, with this 50% capacity rule, that still means that hundreds of people could possibly be allowed to gather indoor at spaces at one time, like event venues, like for weddings. So even under these restrictions, that can likely still happen. Do you feel comfortable with that?
You know, it's my view that the way the rules are written, the larger groups are more exceptions. One exception we all know are the Chiefs playing a game at Arrowhead, where they went through months of preparation, got approval by the health department, continue to have people in smaller groups, I believe less than 8. They're all distanced from others by a distance of about at least 9 feet. That's the sort of thing that we expect to see at other venues, among other things. It's my view that you cannot just kind of have an event on the fly at any random venue. Let's say have a lecture with 1,000 people, even if it's in Sprint or T-Mobile Center. Instead, you'd have to go through the health department for some review, some compliance issues in connection with that to make sure there's adequate distance. That's where I think we are more safe, and generally we won't have congregations more than 10. But let's talk about what this is really about. We should not see 200 people on a patio deck at a bar in Kansas City. We should not see these giant kind of super spreader events. That's what we're trying to avoid. But it is up to the public to make sure that they're considering everyone else when they're figuring out what to do for this Sunday night's football game. I've already said today, I expect people to just go ahead and watch it at home.
Mayor Lucas, one last question before we let you go. We don't have much time left, but we know St. Louis is banning all indoor dining, 25% capacity only outside. We're doing 50%, better than what we were doing. However, a lot of people saying it's still high. Could that change in the future? Could you make this even more drastic and more restrictive?
And short answer is yes. Nobody wants to. Everybody wants businesses to be able to survive, folks to be able to survive. That's why following these rules is important, particularly in your informal private gatherings. Don't have huge house parties. That's spreading uncontrollably in this community, and we need to make sure we keep others safe.
We all have a responsibility. Mayor Quinton Lucas, thanks so much for talking with us this morning.